of all, let me start by apologizing for the glitches we had today. It usually, okay. I was saying, for events like this, we usually have glitches like this, but I will continue with the program. Okay. So we'll be proceeding with the program for today. It's too much, Mr. Chair.
There is an echo.
University of Zimbabwe, Steve Olszewski, the Internet Technology Program Manager for the Internet Society, the President of the Internet Society Botswana Chapter, Mr. Peter, the Board of Directors for the Internet Society Botswana Chapter. Ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. We welcome you to this Internet of Things Seminar 2018. My name is Benson Seraramutswetla. I'll be the MC for today, and I also serve on the board as the Technical Programs Officer. I'm not alone today. I'm with Ms. Oseko. She'll introduce herself and a brief background of her position in the society. Now, in my capacity, I also work for Botswana Fiber Network, which is the #1 wholesale provider of internet in Botswana. And we hope today we are going to be prepared. We are prepared to be sponges to get all the information that we have. Now, just a reminder, we are active on our social media platforms. On Facebook, we go by the name Internet Society Botswana Chapter. And on Twitter, our Twitter handle is at ISOC Botswana. So today our hashtag is going to be hashtag IoT Botswana and then hashtag ISOC Botswana Chapter. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Benson, for the introduction and setting off the stage. My name is Osoro Batisani. I'm the executive secretary on the ISOC and currently a systems engineer at Procom Technologies. Our company offers IT solutions of mainly dealing with Cisco and other security. And now I'll hand over to. Oh, as you already apologize for starting late, we have done with the registration and we'll have opening remarks by our president, followed by Professor Ray M. Kikwaletwe, talking about Internet of Things and individual leadership. Then will be followed by Mr. Solomon Campbell, that is who will be speaking of IoT and Zim experience. Then lastly, by Steve Olszewski from the Internet ISOC Global. Thank you.
Okay. So currently, we are still trying to rectifies, you can hear that we can still hear some echoes. So in the meantime, we are going to be waiting for our president, Mr. Peter Rochere, to give us welcoming remarks, but he's not available at the moment. So please bear with us. We're just going to wait a few minutes.
Is there any echo again? Yes. You are from that mic, eh?
Yeah. No, well,
okay, fine. Good evening, everyone. Yes, let me welcome you to our program tonight, IoT seminar. Let me start by apologizing. We have a problem with the multimedia because this event is supposed to be live, and then we have over 100 people trying to connect with us now, and it looks like we have a problem with the internet is a problem. I believe each one of us here knows that issue. So let me start by introducing you to ISOC. Internet Society Botswana Chapter was launched this October 25. We started this year and we are affiliated with Internet Society Botswana. Our aim as Internet Society Botswana is to promote internet issues. Issues of internet governance, issues of cybersecurity, and even we have over 200 local members. Okay, now I can speak. Okay, we currently have over 200 members registered online, and we are growing. So as ISOC Botswana, we have issues that we are working on. So tonight we'll be talking about IoT concept. This concept is IoT services. Yeah.
The well can hear you. You need to speak onto the mic. The well can hear you. You need to speak onto the mic.
Okay. I hear you say, but we are trying to. People are connected online and they need to hear us. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Turn off the speakers. Okay. Yes, I was talking what we are going to be talking about tonight, Internet of Things. This Internet of Things is being used in, especially US, that are ahead. Everybody else is ahead. So Internet Society Botswana is going to focus on building awareness of what is it and what is it not. And we are also going to be teaching Botswana on how they can benefit from the IoT. So our first series of events is this one, which is targeted at the industry. We are going to focus on government and then we take it to the public. Once the industry and government are in the same page, then we collaborate with them to now run campaigns for the public. So my job today is to welcome you, and I would start by recognizing our speakers. Yes, we have Professor Gekwaletsu here. You can raise your hand. Professor Kwaletu is a digital strategist. He is currently with Vets University. So he's one of us. Raising our flag high in South Africa. He's a very reputable speaker in digital issues. And then our other speaker is Steve. Steve, I can't pronounce his name, but he will be joining us live. He'll be talking more about security implications of IoT and other technical stuff. So his presentation would be live here. He will be speaking from, I think, DC. And then we have Solomon Kembo. Solomon Kembo just arrived now. He's been stuck in traffic, so the reason why I came late. the reason why I came late is I was trying to get him here well on time. So Mr. Kembo is an IoT expert. He has done a lot of IoT projects. He's in Zimbabwe. He's a software engineering instructor at UZ. So he'll be sharing the experience of what IoT is and what they've been doing in Zimbabwe. He's got a very interesting story to tell. So we only have 3 speakers tonight. Let's waste time and welcome everyone to our court. I'm very excited. We have people from sector, IT, and staff. So welcome. Let's get started. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I think we're on now. Ladies and gentlemen, just to put things into context, I think we are all aware of what Internet of Things means or IoT is, right? Over hands, who totally understand what IoT is? By show of hands. So all of you don't know what IoT is. Sorry. No, it's a fair question. We're going to be having a discussion about IoT, so we need to know how we're going to relate today. So who here knows what IoT is? The meaning of IoT? Who can explain to us? Okay, sir.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mr. Pankoti. I'm from company name ISOC, where we negotiate contracts between parties. So I don't want to go, I have to explain to you what IoT. IoT in simple terms is Internet of Things. But I'm jealous because of things, because I don't like things.
Okay, yes, he's right. Internet of Things, the dictionary form of IoT, Internet of Things, is the interconnection via the internet of computing devices embedded in everyday objects, enabling them to communicate to one another. Now we are talking the future here. We're talking fridges talking to you, coffee makers making coffee for you at the right time, at the right time, at the right place. We're talking cars, driverless cars. We are talking no doctors in operating theater. So the Internet of Things. So why is the Internet of Things important to Internet Society Botswana Chapter? Now, as Internet Society, we have 4 main areas of focus that we're looking at for the years 2017 and 2018. Our 4 main areas are community networks, the Internet of Things, internet governance, and demands. So Internet of Things is very important to the Internet Society, hence why we created this seminar. Okay, now without any further ado, our next guest, Professor Ray Kekwaletse, is an internationally renowned ICT researcher, practitioner, and he participates regularly as speaker and panelist at a number of industry and academic events in business leadership and IT seminars. both locally and internationally. Our professor holds a BSc, a BA, and an MSc degree from the American University in Washington, D.C., USA. He also has a PhD in Information Systems from the University of Cape Town. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Professor Ray M. Kekwaletse.
This one. But this one's is it?
No, it's here.
It's here. This one.
Yes,
No, this is one. This one. It's here.
Yeah.
To open this. To open this. Just open this. Where's
The mouse will have
just open this. It's not this one. It's not.
how open up it in the mobile.
No, I can't. But it's already there. It's just put it on the screen. It's already on the screen. No one. It's just to make it large.
No, make it like it's okay. Make it like it's okay. If you get more rubber,
They want to choose the mic. Make sure you use this mic when you
Go to the outside. Madam Betsu? Good evening. I understand after a couple of minutes of waiting and waiting, eventually you list that we do a vibe, hype, but hopefully we'll get it going. The whole point of us discussing this Internet of Things is because we can't be left behind, right? So I'm sure my colleagues, when they come through, they will unpack what it is, the technicalities upon it, and what it entails, and etc. So my interest as an information systems researcher is more on the behavioral side of things, So what we make out of it, what does it mean to us as human beings, and the behavior that, that's get molded as and when these technologies come across. Okay. So the key terms that we want to be hearing during the presentation is more of, how effective phenomenon, okay, of it. And then for the most part, what I mean for the most part is the leadership aspect, okay, the social aspect of things, especially within the context of Africa, all right, the ecosystem as it manifests, and then, what does it mean for us as Africans? Because a dilemma, okay, a leadership dilemma. We have a, situation where as Africans, we tend to adopt and accept things by the Western world, and then it doesn't actually work well as it should because we have different contexts, we follow different culture and so on. All right. As it is now, they will tell you that Internet of Things has arrived, everybody's in it. You should get on the bandwagon, but nevertheless, there are still, organizations out there, individuals and companies and organizations out there that are still hesitant to get into the bandwagon, and you get to understand why. All right, so why are they hesitant? It's because, as it is, Internet of Things, as they like to call it, it's not just things, all right? It's just, again, more to do with the behavior. Individual behavior, organizational behavior, company behavior, society behavior, community behavior. All right, so that it's just the life that now we tend to find ourselves, living. Okay, right now social media has taken over, one may say, but there are still aspects of it that are still, challenging, and then issues. All right, so that we need to get on and have that unraveled. Until then, until that is situated, we we need to be cognizant of what is it that we give out. And as it is now, I mean, we have your social media, Facebooks and all those things already connected. Either through your laptop, you can connect through your laptop, your phone, Android phone, whatever it is. Imagine how much data you're creating, okay? And how much data about you is out there, okay? But in any case, I didn't want to talk to you about the value of IoT and benefits they have. Okay, my interest is in the aspect that, you know, oftentimes is forgotten. All right, the behavioral aspect of it, the leadership aspect of this. Okay, so we may all be excited about this phenomenon and think that we may get in, you know, we want to be part of it. But what does it take to have things run smoothly and seamlessly? Okay, you know, so that's what I'm interested in. We have some McKinsey's all trying to show us that we are left behind. The world has moved on. Okay, 50 billion subscribers, 50 billion devices connected. Why are we left behind? Okay, and the response to that is simply that within the context that we find ourselves, okay, we need to understand ourselves first, okay, before we delve into whatever they're throwing at us. Otherwise, there will be a whole lot of unintended consequences. Okay, so let's be cognizant of what it takes, the leadership aspect of things, and then what does it mean legally, ethically, morally, etc. Okay, but nevertheless, the stage is set for us, you know, to grab that piece, because they're telling us the world is all connected, everybody is connected, devices are talking, you know, people are talking less, devices are talking more, you know, so, but, you know, yes, we should be part of it, but let's be cognizant. Okay, so okay, so I mean, this right here just shows the, you know, how the evolution, you know, the IoT evolved over the years, and because around 2008, 2009 is when they were saying that most devices were connected more than the, you know, population of the world's population. That's when they tend to, you know, coin that time, the period where IoT was coined. Okay, so IoT, given the name, you know, IoT is the world, you know, is connected thereabout because of those numbers. But those numbers don't mean nothing to us if there's no, again, leadership. Okay, there's no management of it. We're just doing things because we find them. All right. Now, as individuals, we have responsibilities. As communities, we have responsibilities. As the government, we have responsibilities. They were talking earlier of engaging the government first, you know, to see what the government can do for us, and then us later, the public, and then individuals. But what does it take? Okay, it's not a matter of bringing all these technologies and then dumping them in there and says, yeah, here we are, used without understanding the implications thereabout. Okay, so leadership is key. But with leadership, what does it mean, leadership? What does it mean? What does it mean? No, we don't understand what leadership means, right? You can see from the audience. It's very hard to coin what leadership means, because everyone has their own definitions and, you know, how they define it. Okay, for me, leadership simply means, okay, you being able to bring with people that can follow what your idea, and then, you know, with not necessarily that you are above them or anything, but they can follow your idea and then, you know, accept it and adopt it so long as you have put forward, you know, what is it that it takes for that to happen. In Africa, the tendency is the opposite. We tend to follow Western leaderships, okay? Europe, America, and then we forget what we're made of here. Leadership, African leadership is different, okay? So what I'm talking about is, you read any book, okay, and it addresses leadership. They will simply talk of leadership theories and styles within the context of the Western world, not within the context of our context here, okay? And we all know Africans, we're different. Botswana, we're different from the other country. The other country is different from the other country within Africa, okay? So what does it take? We need to understand what it takes there culturally, okay? Language-wise, behavioral-wise, etc. before we can think that we are far off this thing of the Internet of Things, and we need to be connected. I need to place this thing, have my house connected to one device. I can just press a button from my different location, and then the gate will open. For instance, imagine if you have this internet connection point. Everything is connected, your mobile phone, your bathroom, your kitchen, your gate. And then all of us here got relatives that, can't really relate to them having to make an appointment to come to your house, right? What's going to happen if your grandmother suddenly drops by because they were in the vicinity? Your gate can open because you have lost the remote somewhere. All right, your windows are now making noise because they're censoring something. They're censoring this criminal activity here. You get it? That will shock your grandmother, right? That will shock that anger. Can we afford to have that? Unless you think you can live in isolation. Okay, because I don't think we can afford to live in isolation as Africans, as Botswana, as anybody else. Get it? So when we talk of this Internet of Things and how we should be, carrying on and diving into the bandwagon, let's think of that first. Okay, because minus that one, dealing with that aspect of it. So what does it mean? What are the implications to our relatives, to our community? To our children, etc. That's where I'm there, back in the days. You see the different areas where we have life as Botswana, right? The city life, the village life. Then you bring in the because Internet of Things simply means all those aspects connected, okay? Being able to be controlled and moved around, molded, styled, okay, via the internet. What's going to happen to that guy who is a donkey cart? When you can't talk to him because you are in the city, you are all connected, but he's not. You get it? So you are all connected, but they're not. What happens? You'll enjoy your fruits of alone. Okay, you'll live in isolation. You get it? So let's address that aspect first. All right, so that we don't find ourselves living in isolation. Okay? I would say as the solution to all this dilemma, all right, starts with us in where we get the education, where we learn things, we learn leadership, we learn management, we learn what it takes, the cultural aspect of things, the culture here. When you bring in the new technology, what are the implications for how we do things here and how things get done here, all right? And all these institutions got the responsibilities to do that, before we can think that anything else could go on, right? This leadership style should be that of an African, should be that of Botswana, should be that of somebody who is savvy as far as the Botswana culture and the Botswana culture is concerned. We don't allow people coming from the Western world to tell us how we should do things with whatever they're bringing. That's what I'm saying. Yes, let them bring whatever they're bringing, all right? But let's first understand what is it that we have here, and that have all that technology just as an enabler, all right, of how we do things, not the other way around. Otherwise, it's not gonna work. It's gonna fail everywhere. Okay, so and it doesn't take much. Okay, it doesn't take much. So long as we understand that all these technologies, all these emerging technologies, left and right, coming through. If you don't have leaders who are culturally savvy, then we'll find ourselves in a situation. Okay, So I mean, how many cases have you heard of? People getting in trouble because of the Facebook whatever post, Instagram post, Twitter, Black Twitter, etc. How many? Because we're not trained. These things were just thrown at us, and then everybody's doing it. It becomes more like a style now. Okay, if I don't do it, people will laugh at me. We think I'm backwards. Okay, so understand the technology first. First, you must understand what is it that you're doing, without the technology, and then bring the technology to enable that, not the other way around. Okay, so that ought to be set. And I'm just saying that, it takes certain, mental setup of us as individuals to determine what it will take for us to adopt and accept this Internet of Things, and for that technology or phenomenon to work here in Botswana, because we have three, spheres of living, if you call it, categories. We've got the lands, we've got the cattle post, we've got the village, we've got the city. If you adopt it and accept it and have it, where are you gonna have it? Throughout, or in just one aspect? Once you leave that one aspect, you leave abroad, and then everybody's looking at you, what is it? Yeah. All right. So that's my key right there. And that context is key. Have your Internet of Things in the road. It's not gonna work else. Will it work? How will it work? How it will work is how for us to find out how it will work, in what situations, in what context. Get it? On its own, it won't. Otherwise, again, it's just you carrying yourself from one area, one location to the next. All right, you get into one location. How are you going to interact with the community there about? Because you're connected only to yourself and whatever your house over there in the cities. Mudisa Kota can't come to your house. Mudisa Kota doesn't need to call you before he comes to say, hey, please turn off the sensor somewhere, because I don't want to be blowing on my face thinking that I want to take a shower. You get it? I don't want your stoves all turning on because they think I need to cook. It's about that time. You get it? Because all right. So that's actually, so all the IT leaders in here, all I'm saying is just recognize that context and culture plays a role when we try and adopt and accept all these technologies that we keep hearing about. Okay, and then we feel that all things will be, will be smooth. All right, and that concludes the end of my discussion, my talk with you. Just more like it was not a discussion, because I was standing here like a priest, talking. See, the thing is now, I don't have a degree in theology, man. I would rather have people having this interactive, thing going. We talk to each other, discuss, rather than me standing over here and we, flipping slides after slides. You get it? And then, what does it mean? Mudisa Kota over there is yawning, thinking, hey, listen, what's going on? But if we're talking to each other, then it makes a whole lot, of a difference. All right? So, sure. Yes, sir. Do you have some questions?
Sorry, I wanted to ask if this was going to be a correct because I have some. I'm impelled to comment on what you said because I think you emphasize so much on culture, and this is one key issue that I feel that if we want to advance as a continent or as a people of the black race, we always have this burden of culture, and use one of my own village as an example of what could be done when we Internet of Things.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether I should ask you this as a question or share my opinion because I've had this issue being discussed in different parts of the world about culture, and I always have this question: why is it that of all groups of people on earth, Africans always feel that they have the greatest burden of culture? Other groups, their culture changes at least every between 10 and 50 years, depending on the part of the world. And such things as IoT changes their lifestyle every now and then. And then you look at the Asians, they transform so quickly within a short period of time because of technology or internet. And then when they are tired, that's when they start saying, oh, culture, we have culture. Go to Europe, their culture, mainstream culture transforms in say 30 years. You go to the place where you study, it changes so quickly. But Africa, it seems like we are carrying this huge burden of culture. And what is that culture? Why don't we look at what we call culture? You used very relevant. Can you go back to the slides that you used? We had donkeys and and first houses. Yes.
Yeah.
How about if we look at these things and we call them atavism, and we say, let us get rid of these atavisms because our world has been changing slowly, and we seem afraid. We talk about leadership and change. Atavisms. These are things from home that we don't need, which are keeping us back. So why don't we look at this and say, if we want to create an environment that is saturated by IoT, let us look introspect as a society and say, look, let's do away with these atavisms. We know it's nice on TV when people come from far and say, oh, these people like dancing, they like dressing like that, look, donkeys. We are not the best. We are not the best people to go through this education life. We need to be frank about this. We are not the first people and the only people in this entire world to build out of mud, out of thatched roofs, or these other things that we celebrate as a culture. So in my opinion, if we are going to do this in Matthew, I would go to the chief and say, Chief, if he didn't go to school, I will respectfully say to him, Chief, we need to change our way of life, and we need to get rid of certain practices and mentalities, and even not even celebrate anything called culture. I don't intend to be long, but there's a country that actually did this very well, and this was South Korea. When I lived in South Korea, it was so difficult to tell the difference between the lifestyle in Seoul and if you went, for example, to a place called Sojo, which used to be really rural. And all that they did was to balance the lifestyle and be able to get rid of things that didn't work anymore. So they built, starting with agriculture, with the assembled practice. And then after some of them, they made sure that technology was equally accessible. So I think that's how Botswana should approach it. And we should get rid of this culture and all these other attributes.
No, it's an opinion, it's a view going to be taken. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So any other views? I don't think you expect me to say much.
Let me cut you here.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, sure. Afterwards now. Yeah.
We are sorry about that, to cut you short, but we can continue with questions and answers later, since we're going to have both our professor and the other presenter later on here. And Professor, thank you very much for such an enlightening discussion. It seems like it's really sparked a lot of questions from the audience. Hope we'll discuss it later on. Right now, looking at our agenda, we have a speaker from ISOC Global. That is Mr. Steve Olshanki. Mr. Steve Olshanki is the Internet Technology Program Manager at Internet Society, based in Colorado, United States. Steve holds an MS in Telecommunications from the University of Colorado at Boulder and BA in Political Science from Colorado College. He is a member of ACM and senior member of IEEE. I hope we are all familiar with IEEE here, right? Yep. The gentleman here will fix Mr. Steve's presentation.
Hello, can you hear me?
Did you unmute? While looking full screen. Unmute.
Steve, can you try to speak now?
Hello, this is Steve. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, we can.
I don't know if
Yes,
you
I believe they can hear you. So I don't want them to have their mic on in the room. So
Yes, of course.
to avoid echo. Yeah.
Let me share my screen here. Hopefully you can see my screen now. Do you see a PowerPoint slide? And I cannot see the chat.
Yeah, I will monitor the chat.
Okay, thank you.
Hello.
Can you see my PowerPoint slide?
They can get the presentation. So I think
Okay.
you can proceed.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, I'm happy to share the slides afterwards. My name is Steve Olshansky. Thank you very much for the invitation. I really appreciate being with you here today. I'm not sure, can you in the room see my slides?
They say yes.
Oh, excellent. Okay. So I'll just move along here. I show this cartoon. Some of you may have seen this in the past. I'll give you a minute to look at it if you haven't. It's humorous, but it's not humorous. It's really a picture of what the future looks like as it relates to security and privacy for the Internet of Things, unless we get this under control, because right now it's a very uncontrolled environment, and there's a lot of threats to our security and privacy. So I only use this cartoon as a semi-humorous illustration of where the world could go if we don't take affirmative action. So the Internet of Things represents both opportunities and threats. The opportunities are boundless as we get more and more connected devices. And I will note, by the way, that I do not call them smart devices, because in many ways they are not smart. And in many cases, the individual devices are only conduits for information back up to a cloud service. So we call them connected devices ordinarily. So there are great opportunities and there are significant threats posed to our security and privacy. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So I think you all are aware that we've seen an explosion of Internet of Things devices and systems. By many estimates, it's going to be several times the population of the globe very soon now. We're seeing these coming up around us in many parts of the globe.
Steve?
Yes.
Can you please put your presentation full screen, because we are seeing presenter mode.
Are you seeing the window with the videos? How about that? Are you seeing my?
We are seeing it, but in presenter mode. So
you're seeing presenter mode?
Yeah.
Okay, let me try something else. Hold on 1 minute, please. One moment. Is that better?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Shall I proceed?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, of course. Thanks for letting me know. So as we see more devices connected around us, the privacy and security risks increase very significantly. And most significantly, many consumers of these devices don't even know about the privacy and security risks, or if they do know them, they're not sure of what they can do to protect themselves. So this is a big problem and only growing. So when we think about the threats to security posed by the Internet of Things, we tend to think of them in what we would term internal and external, or inward security and outward security. And what we mean by that is inward security. If you have a device in your home and some bad guy hacks it and uses it to start a fire in your home or hurt some property, then that's obviously a very significant issue and something that we would look at in terms of inward security. Being the Internet Society, we are also very focused on the external threats posed by compromised or hacked Internet of Things devices. And that is, you may have a smart device in your home that has been hacked and is being used as part of a botnet to attack critical internet infrastructure. And we've seen many examples of that in recent years. And in many cases, the person in the home may have no idea that their device has been compromised, because it might still be functioning perfectly normally as far as the person could see, and yet still being used to attack internet infrastructure. And the internet infrastructure might just be convenience items like online shopping, or it can be critical government infrastructure. It could bring down power systems, power grids, water systems, things like that are very important to government services, to the population, and pose a very significant threat. So we look at it from both perspectives, and it's important to keep this in mind going forward. So we've seen a lot of threats making the headlines. These are just some examples. And again, I don't want to focus on the particulars too much, and these slides will be available for you afterwards. But this is just an illustration of the kinds of threats we're seeing. They're making the news, and they are significant and only growing. If anybody has questions, if somebody in the room can channel them, I cannot see the chat, and I'm happy to stop anytime and respond to questions. So please feel free, or comments. So the Internet Society's perspective on IoT is several-fold. Certainly, we care about network resilience, trust, security, and privacy for pretty obvious reasons. I think everybody in this room understands that the internet has become central to the lives of much of the global population, and in many cases is used for core infrastructure supporting services and resource access that we rely upon for many aspects of our lives. The growing number of connected devices, many of which are unfortunately insecure and vulnerable, poses a significant threat to the internet and its users. So the consumer or buyer of these devices and the retailer or reseller awareness is really important, as is consumer education. We understand that market demand can be a very important lever when it comes to this kind of thing. And in fact, we are trying to make IoT security and privacy into what we would call competitive differentiators. And by that, I mean, if a manufacturer does well for security and privacy, they should proudly advertise that fact. And consumers should acknowledge that and make their buying choices accordingly. And say, if a certain device that they're considering is known to have better security and privacy, that's an important aspect and something that should be taken into consideration when making a buying choice. So when we think about the risk spectrum, it can range from merely annoying and being just a minor inconvenience to significant physical hazard, both to property and, most importantly, to our safety, to our health and safety. So as you think about these things, the annoying things are simply that they're annoying, they're a minor inconvenience. But since the threats can be so significant to our physical safety, this is something that we really need to take very seriously, especially as these devices proliferate and become very ubiquitous in our lives. So common mistakes that we see from IoT manufacturers are listed here. I won't read them to you, but the long and short of it is that many of these manufacturers are new to the connected device sort of arena. They may have been making refrigerators, for example, for many, many decades, but a connected refrigerator is a new thing for them. And I raise that because in many cases, these manufacturers, while they might make very fine refrigerators, are very new to the internet world and may not have the capabilities and the experience to understand what all the threats are and how they should be dealing with them. So as we move forward, a lot of what we're doing is outreach to manufacturers to help them understand. So privacy is a big deal, obviously. The security of our personal information is very important to us and our children, and is something that needs to be taken very seriously. It is as important as security. In many cases, privacy is either neglected or not taken as seriously because security is a more immediate threat, and that's not to minimize that. But it's very important that we consider privacy as well. And when we think about that, we think about what data is being collected, where it's going, how it's being used, and what control or understanding do we have over what data is flowing around us. So at the Internet Society, we're doing a lot of work on IoT security and privacy, and we have a broad term for this. We're calling it IoT Trust by Design. So we have 3 pillars in our work at the Internet Society in this area. The first is working with manufacturers and suppliers to adopt and implement the Online Trust Alliance IoT Trust Framework, and I'll be talking a little bit more about that shortly. Second is to mobilize consumers to drive demand, as I say, making it better security and privacy into competitive differentiators and raising consumer awareness. The third pillar is working with policymakers and regulators around the globe to push for better security and privacy in IoT to the extent that they're able to influence that through their policies and regulations. So as we work with the industry, we ask them to commit to the principles and the framework, and I'll show you that in a moment. And we try to push that all the way through the supply chain because we understand that many manufacturers do not make every particular component in the devices that they sell. In many cases, they acquire components from other sub-manufacturers and assemble them into their devices. So it's important that every step in the supply chain be looked at very critically in terms of security and privacy. And then the third bullet there is looking at retailers and asking them that they look very significantly at the products that they consider for sale in their stores, and hopefully only carry products that rise to a certain level in terms of security and privacy. So consumer organizations are a very important part of our work because they have the reach to the public to help them understand what the security and privacy aspects of these devices are. So we're encouraging them to utilize security and privacy aspects in their product reviews as available, and to help consumers make smart choices by providing outreach and education materials. Toward that end, in the first half of this year, we announced a partnership with an organization based in the UK called Consumers International. I'll talk more about them in a moment, but they're a member organization for consumer organizations around the world. And they're in more than 100 countries, and they have 200 plus members. So they're a very large organization with a great deal of global reach. So for policymakers, we encourage them to strengthen the accountability of every component of the supply chain. make everybody understand their responsibilities, and try to hold them accountable. We encourage them to promote the use of what we would call trustability signals, which in some cases may be a trust mark or a certification, or a way for people to understand the security and privacy aspects of devices that they are considering buying or using. And we encourage all the stakeholders to utilize trust by design, which includes security by design and privacy by design. And by that, we mean making sure that good security and privacy are incorporated in the design and manufacture and support of your products from the very moment that they are first conceived, all the way through their life cycle out in the field and in the hands of consumers. It's very important that security and privacy not be viewed as a last minute afterthought that can just be bolted on at the end before you take your products to market. It never works well. It needs to be part of the process from the very beginning. Regulators and policymakers in their roles can provide strong incentives for better practices in the world. That they have basically the ability to punish and to reward. And by providing incentives for better practices, that's a much more productive approach when it works. We also encourage them to foster technology and vendor neutral solutions. We are concerned about the aspects of proprietary solutions for many reasons, not the least of which is something that we would call vendor lock-in, meaning that once you buy a product from a certain manufacturer, you're stuck using products that support that sort of infrastructure. And it makes it very difficult to either utilize other products or to take your data and move it to other products. So it's very important in our view that open standards and vendor neutral solutions be a focus. And likewise, we encourage policymakers to make smart use of regulatory tools. In many cases, that means better enforcement of existing policies and regulations. There are certainly the ability to make new ones, but in many cases, the existing ones on the books, so to speak, can be very effective if only they were better enforced. So we have a number of resources that we use to encourage many of the stakeholders in the IoT ecosystem to better understand the issues. I've noted some of them here. I'll talk about the Online Trust Alliance for a moment. This was an existing organization that the Internet Society absorbed in April of 2017 and is now running as an initiative within the Internet Society. They are a very strong organization that is doing a lot of good work. One of the very interesting aspects of their work is the IoT Security and Privacy Trust Framework, which I'll talk more about in a moment. And we're utilizing this as the key foundation for much of our work in IoT within the Internet Society. So when we think about frameworks, there are a number of them out there, including ours, the OTA framework. And this is becoming a pretty significant resource for the world. And these frameworks provide guidance to the stakeholders in the IoT ecosystem to help them understand what the issues are and what they can do about them. So the framework, to be effective, needs to address all dimensions of the problem, all the way from the individual devices and sensors to the controlling apps, could be on your phone or on your computer, that control them, and the back-end cloud and web services. And we encourage them to focus on the full range of consumer concerns, including security, privacy, and the entire product lifecycle, meaning understanding and supporting all the issues for your device while it is being used out in the field. Realistically, we understand that manufacturers cannot support their products forever. There is a certain time frame. It may be 18 months, it may be 3 or 5 years, but at some point support for a product is going to end, and that's understandable. But these devices don't cease to exist at the end of the supported lifetime. In many cases, they may continue in use for years or even decades afterwards, unsupported, and in many cases unknown to the manufacturer. And as time goes on, this is going to become a more significant problem. So the Online Trust Alliance security and privacy trust framework is broken down into 4 key areas. I won't read them to you. You'll have these slides later and you're welcome to go look at them. But basically, they cover security principles, user access and credentials, privacy, disclosures, and transparency, which is very important, and notifications and related best practices. Here's a look at what the framework actually looks like. As I said, it's a list of 40 principles, many of which should not be shocking to manufacturers, but many manufacturers do not adhere to them, which is unfortunate, and it's for a variety of reasons, many of which relate to market pressures and economics, because manufacturers are under a great deal of pressure to get their products to market quickly and at the lowest cost possible. When you do security and privacy the right way, it slows things down and it costs money. So they need to be really incented to make this a part of their process and understand why it's important, even though it's going to raise the costs and slow down their product development life cycles. So toward this end, we understand that testing and certification and trust marks can be a very important part of this in terms of letting consumers and buyers understand the security and privacy aspects of devices that they are considering. So here are some examples of some in the world. These are growing very quickly. There are a number of these all over the world. They vary in terms of the depth of detail they go into. In many cases, they all have very similar principles in terms of what they're trying to cover. They may slice them and dice them, so to speak, in different ways, but many of them are looking at very similar aspects of the security and privacy landscape. Some of them are self-asserted, meaning that there is no independent testing, and it's up to the manufacturer on the honor system, so to speak, to say whether their products or services adhere to those principles. Now, certainly a manufacturer can lie about that. There's nothing immediately stopping them from doing that, but there are a lot of risks in doing that. One is the reputational risk. If it comes to light in the public that they have lied about these things, meaning somebody has suffered an injury, for example, and in the course of a court case where they're trying to sue the manufacturer, it becomes revealed that the manufacturer lied in their self-asserted trust mark about adhering to certain security and privacy principles. That would make things far worse for them. So there are reputational risks and there are legal liability risks in misrepresenting your adherence to these self-asserted trust marks. The full-blown certification is another issue. That's where you have an external auditor, an independent agency assessing whether your product and service adheres to certain assessment criteria. It costs a lot of money, it takes time, and it's a much more complex ecosystem. There are some of these out there, they are growing, and it's an important aspect of the world that needs to be kept in mind ongoing. But it is a much more difficult bar to clear, for example, for manufacturers, and it can be quite costly. And while a very large manufacturer may not find that to be a problem, small to mid-sized manufacturers might find the cost and time burden to be very significant and a real problem. So that's something to keep in mind as we talk about these things. So on the policy front, there are a lot of things going on. These are some examples of things going on in the US and Canada. There are similar things going on in various places around the world. Policymakers are taking notice. They're understanding that this is a significant issue. They're hearing from their constituents that this is something that they need to pay attention to. And a lot of these things, while they are specific to the individual country where they're happening, have content and principles that can be used elsewhere as models. So even though something may be based in the US, it still might be worth looking at as an example of something that could be built upon in other countries or regions. So in the effort to provide good, solid, factual information to policymakers and regulators. We have published several documents, one of which is IoT Security for Policymakers, which was published earlier this year. We have a companion piece in progress called IoT Privacy for Policymakers. And the link at the bottom of this slide is where you can find all of our privacy briefs. And if you're at all interested in the policy aspects of this, I encourage you to have a look at them and feel free to share any of these with anybody you think might be interested in a government role in particular. So taking a step up, we view this as a collective responsibility. There's no one player in this ecosystem who's solely responsible. The responsibility lies on all of us. So it's important to us as consumers to make our voices heard, to inform ourselves, and to try to better understand what the issues are, and to advocate for the people that we talk to about why these things are important. So when you think about privacy, data is a really critical aspect to this, in the sense that these devices are collecting a lot of information about us, in many cases much more than they actually need to provide the service or functionality that they were designed for, just because they can. If they're monitoring your house, they can collect a lot of information about your movements. And if somebody is looking to break into your house, knowing when you're there and when you're not can be very useful to know when to break in. So these kind of things can have really significant aspects on our security as well. It also expands the reach of surveillance and tracking, which can be a real significant problem in many parts of the world, in all parts of the world. So it really kind of reframes the debate about privacy issues, because it dramatically changes and increases the way that personal data is collected and used. This had significant implications on our basic rights and our sense of personal safety and control, and more fundamentally, our ability to trust the internet and the devices connected to it. So as we think about enhancing the privacy in IoT, we need to develop strategies that respect individual privacy choices and enable individuals to understand what data is being collected and transmitted and to control it. And traditional online privacy models may not fit when you have ubiquitous devices all around. Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Would you say again?
Yes, sorry, I think it was a mic issue over there. You can proceed.
Oh, okay. No worries. So I'm almost done here. And then I'm happy to take questions or comments. So as we think about enhancing privacy on IoT, it's really important that we think about individual privacy choices and ways for users to express them and understand what kind of information is being collected. Transparency and openness are key, and the ability to make meaningful choices is extremely important. Minimizing the data that's collected and the way it's used is a very important aspect of this, and it can be very challenging when you don't even know what's being collected. And as important as any of this is the ability to opt out and decide that I don't want to collect this information. If I have a smart refrigerator or a connected refrigerator, even I make that mistake. If I have a connected refrigerator in my home, it should still function as a refrigerator, even if it's not connected to the internet, or if the manufacturer goes out of business or stops supporting it. It should still keep my food cold. So it's really important that users have the ability to understand how these things work and to still use them for their primary function, even if they're not connected. So earlier I mentioned Consumers International, which is the global organization for consumer organizations. The link's in here. I'll let you have a look. I will note that there is a Botswana member. I couldn't find a website for them, but if you go to the Consumers International website and look at their members page, you'll see a little bit more information about them. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this organization, but they do have a member in Botswana. So we will be working with Consumers International on a number of initiatives. And our goal is to ensure that individuals have access to secure connected devices, that they understand what the online privacy and security aspects of these things mean for them. And most importantly, that they are empowered to make informed choices about the technology they use in their daily lives. So I think it's pretty clear to us that the IoT has tremendous potential to transform the way we interact with with our environment and with the internet. But it's very important that we act soon and now to address the security and privacy challenges. As we become more enmeshed in this ubiquitous IoT environment, we need to understand what these issues are, what the benefits are, and what the risks are. The risks are significant and the challenges, but they are not insurmountable. And we shouldn't just throw up our hands and say this is a lost cause and there's nothing we can do. There's quite a lot that we can do even in our individual lives. It's important to understand that IoT systems are extremely complex and every part must be secured. These things are only as secure as the weakest link, and the weakest link can be very hard to discern when you're looking at very complex systems. And as I was saying earlier, the economics favor weak security. The market pressures toward cost reduction and speed to market work against better security and privacy. And these are constant challenges and they're not going away. So it's important that we try to encourage dialogue and engagement with all of the stakeholders that we have access to, and encourage collaboration to find solutions for these problems and figure out the best ways forward. We understand that consumer knowledge of IoT security and privacy is low, and thus awareness and education are extremely important, but they're challenging. We know that market demand can be a very important driver. For example, when governments procure products and services, when retailers make better security and privacy a requirement, these things can have a significant impact. We understand that security is difficult, especially for new players. We understand that security support is challenging and it must be maintained as long as possible. And we also acknowledge that there is an important role potentially for certification and trust marks, but this is a complex space. So if you're not aware or if you haven't seen, the Internet Society has a number of resources around the Internet of Things. Here's the link, just internetsociety.org/IoT. There are a lot of links off of there, including to the Online Trust Alliance resources. Here's some links that you can look at your leisure for more information. And most importantly, you should be empowered and feel like you can and should get involved. It's really important to make everybody around you aware of the need for better security and privacy in IoT. If and as you interact with any manufacturers or retailers, it's important to express your views and encourage them to use the IoT trust framework or similar frameworks as a filter and things that they should use as guidance to adopt when they're manufacturing their products. And educate your friends and family about the IoT security and privacy aspects, or what we would call hygiene. And most effectively, engage with your ISOC chapter. It's really important. You have a really unique resource here with the Internet Society chapter and your ability to interact with the Internet Society globally. And we're very eager to support you in that. And that's it. Thank you very much. Let me reset my screen here.
Okay, I don't think Steve. Okay. And again, content. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Steve. We can have a round of questions. If anybody has a question, we have a roving mic, but it's.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Steve, for a good presentation. Internet of Things. I've introduced myself like negotiating contract parties. Therefore, I have presentation. There is an issue. I don't know if I have to say migration, moving from a certain stage to another stage where we have to question here is how statistical are we the engagement into Internet of Things? Because Internet of Things is like, if I've got a product, I have to love my product. And if it's giving me rewards or a performance, I have to say, okay, 10 people out of 100 people that are using Internet of Things, they're engaged. So how engaged are we into that? That is the question. We'll discuss it at a later stage. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions? Cindy, do you have a question? You don't, okay. Yes, you'll have to come up front.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My question is to the Internet of Society. I see that you guys beforehand, I like to present this for very good presentations. My question is to the Internet of Society. I can see you guys are developing frameworks and standards. I was wondering, are you guys collaborating with the ITU? Because I know a lot of regulators work with the ITU. So it's my first time in the Internet Society. So I just wanted to know about that. Thank you.
Yes. Do you have any more questions? Cindy. Any more questions? Okay. Mr. Chara, can you answer that? Okay.
Okay. Internet Society is a big partner of ITU. Yeah, we hold a lot of events partnering with ITU, so we are very big partners. And we also have forums like IETF that we often collaborate with ITU. So we are big partners of ITU.
Okay. Okay, so maybe let me refresh your memory on what Steve was presenting on. By the year 2020, there will be 20 billion connected devices. And these connected devices will have various threats to the internet infrastructure and data privacy. So does anybody have a question to Steve? Anybody? Muluki? Like I said, I know all of you, so I'm going to call your names if you don't participate. Okay, so without any further ado, I would like to call upon our next speaker, our final and last speaker, Mr. Solomon Kembo. Mr. Solomon Kembo is a software engineering lecturer at the University of Zimbabwe School of Technology, and he's the founder of the Internet of Things Makerspace in Zimbabwe.
There was one question for Steve.
And he's an active member of the Internet Research Task Force on IoT semantic hypermedia interoperability WISHI working group. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Mr. Solomon Campbell.
Sorry about that. We are still working on Mr. Campbell's presentation. May we please continue with questions for our first presenter? I think
there was one question for Steve. Can you please repeat
the question?
Tsepo, you can come. They're not going to hear you. Okay. And they want to see you perhaps.
It's a short question. Thank you so much. My name is Buitsepo. I just have some comments. This Internet of Things, I wanted to talk to Steve because they are at the global chapter. This Internet of Things, you know, devices connecting to each other. It places human beings, you know, it's the riskiest, it's efficient, but in terms of risk, vulnerability, I know we have to embrace technology, there's nothing we can do about it, but this exposes humanity like no technological development ever. And I was a little bit bothered because he acknowledged that sometimes economics, you know, overrides security. And I felt that when it comes to Internet of Things and security, IoT and all other, you know, regulatory bodies should step up. Anything can happen. And technology should not, you know, go ahead of, you know, privacy should not go ahead of security of people. I felt that this is, when it comes to ethics, this is one development that positions mankind at a very, you know, weak and very vulnerable position. Then there is another question that I wanted to just a comment. How I wanted to you mentioned culture so many times. Culture and we see people ba apere ditlabore tšale mo mogoteng o kana go twe ke culture ko nne e simololwa teng. It was necessary because go tsididi. But I was a little bit bothered to say, when we have to talk culture of Africans, this Africans, I think our leadership should you know, advance our objectives. And I don't think we should have African leadership and European leadership, because right here, right now, as members of the Internet Society, you can just, you know, to Europe and still be with us transacting when your mindset, your thinking, and everything is global. So, Tota, when you talk about culture, African culture, we can even position yourself as a member of the internet continent, you know, financial continent. You can. I refuse to identify with Africa. I refuse to identify with you. I identify with, you know, geographic boundaries. I want to identify myself on what matters to me. Like I'm a digital citizen. So I'm not going to identify myself geographically, especially when it is a very weak player in the global, you know, economy. So I am happy with your presentation. I'm happy with the manner with you just, you know, advanced issues, especially when you talk leadership and the place of leadership in the digital economy. I liked it. It was it landed easily. So I'm very happy that I came here. At my age, we don't, we don't travel at night, visit at night, attend events at night. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Maybe we didn't, okay, no problem. Maybe we didn't tell you what our logo is. Our logo as, our slogan as the Internet Society Botswana is Internet is for everyone. So you are in a very right place to be here today. The Internet is for everyone. It's not for Benson alone. It's not for only one person. It's for everyone. So what I took from Buitapo's question was, is the Internet of Things worth it if it's going to pose a privacy and security issue? Now, I think we can think about that. Or maybe we have to have more dialogue on it, especially in the context of Botswana. Are we ready for the Internet of Things? And is there a market for Internet of Things in Botswana? Okay, so more questions? Okay, sir, you can come up front. Don't be afraid to come up front. Be deliberate in your deliberation.
Ke a le dumedisa. Nna ke video a o lebile. So I just came here to challenge you as Internet Society Botswana Chapter to sensitize Botswana to trust the online business. Like as a Botswana, I want to come up with a online business. So if you can, the Botswana Society, educate Botswana to trust. Steve was talking about trust. If you can educate Botswana about trust and teach them to easily identify secure website so that they can start buying online. I'm dying to start an online business in Botswana. I'm an
Yeah. Botswana chapter is doing a lot. I don't know if you guys have seen recently, we've had a series of media interviews where we were talking. We just launched our local chapter in September. So we still have a lot of events like this and even more that are going to sensitize the public about the internet and to trust the internet, like the sir was saying. Okay, sir.
Thank you. I'm a teacher by profession. I have 3 questions. Yeah, one is for Steve. I don't know. It's very simple and short. I'd like to know which country has made progress in terms of developing policy and implementing it concerning specifically IoT. Next one is I missed the first part of your presentation about leadership and amongst us Botswana, do you think we have the same definition or understanding of the word culture? Because I want to believe it goes beyond donkey carts and looking at how countries have developed. America had to try and understand how did the Japanese develop so much. And if you look at literature, you find the difference was the culture, the intrinsic values they had that made them move. Almost all Asian countries, there's a difference between the intrinsic values, their culture. I work for the state. Kingdom, no, I forgot the word, sorry. And
The last one is for Internet Society, the Botswana chapter. You put it nicely. Say internet is for everyone. When I look at this room here, I see IT leaders, IT students. Lero now we are just IT. We are self-motivated towards IT. What about those people who are none of those? But looking at the presentations about IoT, it is very intrusive. It is bulldozing its way into our lives. The ordinary Botswana, no matter working, not working, a boss, not a boss, who are not part of this group here. What are you doing about it? What is the frame?
Thank you, sir. Yes, he's asked a very important question. What is the Internet Society Botswana Chapter doing? We currently have to capacitate VDC leaders, village development, on the use of the internet, which is ongoing in the Boteti district. And this project that we plan to take across in Botswana, in all villages where internet is not normally a thing, in those areas, we are trying to facilitate it. But in terms of the reflection we see here, we had an interview on Masa on Radio Botswana, where we had a lot of people who were from villages that were deep in Botswana, who really were encouraged by what the Internet Society is doing, who are also part of us. So be encouraged that we are doing a lot. So we are running out of time. So without any further ado, the professor can answer the question.
You know, the way culture has said, people define it differently. It means different things depending on who you are, the context in which you find yourself. Get it? So when I say in this context, culture means the way we do things and how we get things done within within a certain society community. The gentleman came and said he wants to start an online business. So for him to succeed, with that, it's imperative for him to understand how do people in this community buy goods? How do they buy products? You know, so if until you understand how they do things, there's no way you can expect them out of nowhere to go online and log in and buy your product. You get it? That's the culture I was talking about. So if you understand how people do things within a certain proximity, location, village, town, then you know how to position your particular business. Otherwise, online business, just doing it because everybody's doing it and hoping that people will buy stuff via you, is not going to happen. That's the culture I was addressing. The other culture that you could address is where now, okay, every month we go to the mountains to cleanse ourselves. That's another way. But then, so again, if you get into this online thing or IoT, it's imperative that you understand how often do people do that, and how do these technologies enable that they're doing. You get it? So people have a tendency to think that technology drives people. Technology is just there. It's an enabler. It's an artifact. You keep doing what you do, okay, and then use technology to enable you to do what you already have been doing all these years. You get it? That's what technology is about. If you think, oh no, there's this technology, let me get into it and do this, it's not gonna work for you. That's the way I was trying to use culture thing, so that as opposed to understanding where people come from.
Okay.
You get it?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Without any further ado, I would welcome Mr. Solomon Campbell.
Thank you a lot for affording me this opportunity to come here and to share some stories from Zimbabwe. So I'm going to take a really traveled path with regards to IoT. So I'm going to look from IoT from a completely different angle. That's why you probably see the looking beyond IoT. From the first presentation, I actually picked that a lot of us are still new to this idea, but you need not worry because the title says looking beyond. How can you look beyond before we even see the actual thing? But what I'm focusing on is paradigm, the way of looking at IoT. I want us to look at one way of looking at IoT, and I'm going to do that through stories from Zimbabwe. What we went through, I'll share with you the experiences that we have had in Zimbabwe. Okay, so this is the general, and I repeat, general architecture of IoT, because one of the challenges with IoT is IoT means different things to different people. But I'm sure most people would agree with me that generally this is what IoT, these are the three tiers or three layers of IoT that you generally find in any IoT deployment. So you have on the extreme, on my extreme right, the IoT devices. You're looking at things like your microwave, you have things like your smartwatches, you have things like your bulbs that are IP enabled, that can connect to the internet. And let's suppose this is in a home setup. So what you probably need is some gateway, some special device. As a single function, probably to warm our food, but we want to connect to the internet. And then maybe the smartwatch, most of our smartwatches are slightly much smarter because they can do several things. They can measure how many kilometers we did jog, they can show time and so on and so forth. But generally they are constrained. So we call these IoT devices constrained devices. Now, so you need to connect them to some special gadget that we call a gateway. So it's more powerful. So suppose we are in a home setup, we have a number of devices or a number of gadgets within our house. We'll need this single device that's more powerful, that all these small gadgets will connect to. And then as much as it's much more powerful, it does not have a lot of storage capacity or even computational capacity. So we'll need to then connect our gateway to the cloud. We're talking of our Amazon Web Services, our Google Cloud, and so forth. So that's like the third tier. So we have three levels. The first level are the gadgets. The second level is this gateway. And then the final level is the cloud. I don't know if this is simple enough because I need to get this to you first before I share the story. We have constrained gadgets that are connected internally, that are connected, and I repeat, internally to the gateway, and the gateway is the one that then connects to the internet or to the cloud. So it sends data to the cloud. So there are a number of challenges, and I think we've had a number of these challenges. And one of the challenges is that of security and privacy. I think Steve exhausted that. But you find that most of the security and privacy concerns are on the gadgets. Okay? So we talked about manufacturers who are just new to creating internet-enabled light bulbs. So they don't dwell much on security. And as a result, someone can actually invade people's privacy through a simple light bulb. So I want you again to pick that. The security content are mostly on the devices. Then another concern is that one of the things prevented people of the gateways that are available, the industry grade gateways at least, are costly. So you're looking at your HP edge line, for example, which goes for about $1,000 US, and suppose you want to have your smart home or your IoT enabled home. It really does not make sense to invest $1,000 US just to get this single device. So I hope we are picking these challenges. And then finally, I think there's something, okay. Okay, so the last challenge, it appears, is just coming through and it's disappearing. So the last challenge pertains to the cloud. So at least in Zimbabwe, the challenge that we have with Amazon Web Services is cost. It's expensive. So even if I were to come up with a useful IoT application, I would not be able to push my data to Amazon Web Services or to Google Cloud because of cost. In Zimbabwe, we are going through a serious economic recession. So cost is one thing. And the second problem is latency. Latency is like the delay that you have as a result of the physical connection. So let's say, for example, you want to have an IoT application that relies on data that is on the cloud. If there's that delay, so we have this fish monitoring project that we have developed in Zimbabwe. So if there's that delay in terms of connection to the cloud, that can cause a lot of problems. I'm sure we've heard of, maybe to use a more real example that we can relate to, we've heard of driverless cars. And these driverless cars rely on data that is saved on the cloud. So there's a problem with the time it takes to connect to the data. You can have problems. And then the last thing, there are serious prices and security issues with cloud service providers. I'm sure I've heard a lot of people complaining about these big internet companies sharing their data with, I think it's NSA in the US. A lot of people were complaining that the big internet service companies, the Googles, the Microsoft, the Facebook, were sharing the data that people had saved on the cloud with Big Brother, as it were. So bearing, so again, I'm seeing that most, I think it's the formatting that we're using. I hope you can pick that the call-out has been displayed somehow, but this slide is almost similar to the previous slide. It's just showing the challenges at the different tiers. So as a chapter in Zimbabwe, we looked at these challenges and we said to ourselves, we need to go beyond the challenges because we actually see lots of value. I will get to where the value is left on, but we had to solve our own, we had to look for solutions to deal with some of these problems. And so I'm going to share with you some of the projects that we undertook in 2018 to deal specifically with these challenges at the different level, at the different tiers. So Internet Society is this contest that they call the chapter zone, in which all chapters across the world compete. So there will be a theme, and you, as a chapter, have to come up with some kind of solution. So for 2008, the theme was Internet of Things. And we saw this as an opportunity to try to address the problem of security and privacy on the IoT devices tier, and also the problem of the IoT gateway, that the challenges of cost and complexity. So what we did is we developed a solution that we called proof of privacy. And we were experimenting with how we can use IoT and blockchain technology. I don't know if you are familiar with blockchain, right? So we developed this small application, and the way that the small application works, so I'll first of all look at the security and privacy. So what we did is we had this IP-enabled camera within a smart home. So nowadays, people are putting these cameras in home. And it's one thing that vendors are actually using to invade our privacy. So for example, I can engage with Big Brother, say we need to surveil what is happening in homes. So I will sell this camera to someone, and this person innocently installs this surveillance camera. But what they don't know is this camera is busy collecting data and sending to Big Brother, as it were. So we connected the camera to the blockchain. The blockchain is essentially a database, but it's different from our normal databases in that we call it an immutable database, which means we can't change it. So all the records that will go through will be written to this database, such that even these guys who are trying to hack cannot change the record. So the idea is, once we save to this immutable database, we also then created an application using some technology from IBM. It's called Hyperledger, Hyperledger Public. So what it does is it allows now someone within a home setup to actually check. So you can actually go online and check all the malicious IP addresses, especially of the Big Brothers. And you can actually check whether the camera has been sending anything outside what you instructed it to do. So that's privacy and security. So this application would tell you that indeed the gadget that you think is just a security surveillance camera is actually sending data to someone, so you can pick it up, and no one can change that. And then the gateway. We say the gateway is costly, and we say to ourselves, we really believe that the ordinary guy should have this thing. So we went on the internet and we came across an interesting gateway developed by the guys at Mozilla. So they developed this gateway that is based on the concept of the web of things. So you can see there Mozilla WOT, which is like the web of things. So we're particularly interested in this because we realized that the internet only came to the ordinary person when the web was discovered. And we lost out. I remember in 2000, there was a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt with regards to the web, because there was that .com bust. And a lot of us said, what get onto this technology? But now look at what has happened. We now have the Mark Zuckerberg. These are just young guys who later on came into the computing field way after some of us here. So when we saw the web of things, we decided to let's look at this web of things. And we realized that it's new technology that's turning IoT gadgets into web resources. So we end up creating a web. You know how the web works, where you have just documents that are connected to each other. So we have all these gadgets connected to each other in a web setup. But one thing that I want you to pay attention to is the private. So it's this gadget is not connected to the internet directly, but it's using internet technology. And the same applies to blockchain. Our experience with blockchain relates to Bitcoin, I want to believe, and Ethereum. And those are public blockchains, as it were. But the one that we were using is a private blockchain. So it's confined to the home setup. We're just using it because once we store data, it's immutable. So that's one thing that I want us to take there. That the blockchain is not public. You just install it, you use it within your home setup. Similarly, the gateway is not directly connected to the internet. It's a private gateway. It's meant to just make your IoT deployment much easier. But the other challenge that you find on that left side is when you buy IoT gadgets, you probably buy them from different vendors. And so maybe you get one from Philips, and you get another one from Ericsson, and you get another one from IBM, for example, or the Chinese. And normally, the protocols that they use for communication are proprietary. They are not open. So what it then means is your devices won't communicate to each other. But by putting that gateway, it allows us to have access to all the devices from a central point. So again, it's one area that we felt we really would want to explore that. So in terms of the cost and complexity, the Mozilla Web of Things gateway reduces cost because the software itself is free. Just download it. And then the hardware, we use a Raspberry Pi. I don't know if you're familiar with a Raspberry Pi. It's a small computer. So you just buy, like in Zim, probably max $80 US. And then you put the software there as opposed to going for the HPH line, which go for about 1,000. With your 80 bucks, you install the Mozilla software, and suddenly you have this IoT gateway. Okay? And then the third, again, it appears to appear and disappear. So the third challenge was on the cloud, on the third time. And we said, at least in Zimbabwe, we have 3 challenges. Cost of connecting to Amazon Web Services, the issue of latency, and privacy as well. So again, we did our research. We don't want to be confined by what everyone is saying. So we looked for a solution, and we came up with a non-conventional way of implementing cloud. So it's called Cloudlet. Fortunately, it's not coming out there. So we then started implementing our IoT deployments within the cloud. Now, a cloudlet is essentially a local cloud, right? So within a community, you set up, and the way we are doing it is we want to use commodity hardware. And by commodity hardware, we're really focusing on the Raspberry Pi. So what we do is we go into a community. We are working in a township in Harare called Mbare. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's the most notorious town in Harare because it's poverty-stricken and most of the crime takes place there. So we decided to go there. We took that risk. So we are using, so the Cloudlet is a small-scale data center that we use, that we create from using cheap Raspberry Pi. So we just buy a bunch of Raspberry Pis, we put them together, we create what we call a cluster. It's a cluster of Raspberry Pis. And the process, we create a data center, a local data center. It's not connected to the internet. So the risk of someone trying to, someone in Ukraine trying to connect to your IoT devices is close to zero. Think of it as it's an intranet. It's an intranet. But we are saying we have to learn these things. We want to remove the security and privacy concerns, but we want to learn. So we are setting up our own cloud. The cost is minimum. The security and privacy goes away because it's not connected to the internet, but it's using internet technology. And then the issue of latency goes away. So these are the 3 projects that I felt we first of all looked at the challenges that everyone is talking about. And we said, what we want to learn, are there ways that we can go around some of these challenges instead of just complaining and complaining and complaining? And we came up with these 3 different things that are already there. We didn't reinvent the wheel, we just looked and we discovered that some guy in Carnegie Mellon developed this cloudlet architecture. Some guys at Mozilla developed the IoT gateway. Some guys at IBM developed the hyperledger. We just pulled this and we experimented with these internet technologies. Now, I'm sure you were paying attention to what was happening in Zimbabwe, the elections and the court challenges, and we ended up, one of the benefits was our English, I think, improved because we were watching lots of lawyers, and lawyers want to use sophisticated words. And one of the most famous words now is pith. So there's this lawyer who was saying, the pith of my argument, the fulcrum of my argument. So if I can use the same, the pith of my presentation is this slide. That's the fulcrum, right? Remember I was saying, let's look beyond IoT. I want to think we can look, we can be like, I'm sure the guy, the guy you're seeing there, who can recognize that guy? Huh? That's Ray Kroc, the guy who started McDonald's. Okay? So maybe I'll start off by sharing with you some conversations that I had with Chere. So I've been discussing a lot of these IoT issues with Chere since we met in Addis in June. And one of the things he was telling me about, I hope I got that one, like CityView is, I believe that's where I'm staying. I think I've lost, I think the CityView is the hotel, right? Sorry, what? Sorry if but I think I'm staying in some place called CityView. So apparently Chere works with these guys, and he was explaining to me that, Solomon, it's difficult just trying to get the internet to these guys. They probably are not seeing the value. Then I suggested to him that maybe the problem is these guys are business people. Maybe the way you're packaging the internet is the wrong way. You need to look at the internet differently. But really, the internet, the real value of the internet is not on having access to applications. So, for example, I'm sure you've heard this famous saying, which says, if you are getting a particular product for free, you are not the client. You are the product. Facebook. Most of us are happy that we have access to free Facebook. You are not the client of Facebook. You are not. The clients of Facebook are the advertisers. The same applies to Google. Everyone Googles free of charge. If you think Google is nice, being nice to us. No, we are not, from a business point of view, we are not their clients. We are their product. So they want to have as many products so that they can sell to the client. The marketers are the guys who are their clients. So it's the same thing with the internet. The real value of internet is not in the technology. It's not in the bits that are moving. It's really in the data. So I was explaining to him that why don't you frame your IoT message to this guy this way? Go to CityView Hotel and tell them, I've seen that you have these fridges. I think we can put in some sensors within your fridges. I'm sure I've been to some of these hotels where there's this bar where they put in all the stuff, but it has sensors. When you take out a drink, it actually completes that you have taken out. There's no person there. So I was telling him, why don't you sell the idea of automation? Now, this idea kind of has an evil part. There's an evil part, because what you're selling to these guys is, if I bring you this technology, it will make you competitive. It will cut down on your cost, because you have to lay off some of your employees, because your employees are always going to be paid, whether they are clients or not. So I want you to hold on to that. I know we are about to throw stones at me to say, but you are advocating for people to be laid off. But I'm looking from a competitive point of view, from the business, because this guy wants you to sell something. So if you are going to say, I have this technology, but I don't think you need it because it's going to make you, you're going to be uncompetitive, but you're going to appear like a good person. What these guys want to hear is it going to improve my markup? Is it going to improve my productivity? That's what you want to sell. If I bring this IoT, it will bring essentially one thing: automation. So that's the conversation that I had with him. And so again, coming back to IoT, I'm hoping after my stories, you can also understand that the power of IoT is not in those gadgets. I want us to look at why Germany is putting billions into IoT. What is happening? Why Japan is putting lots of billions in IoT? Why the US is putting lots of billions in IoT? Because of one thing: data. That's where the power is. Because the moment you have data, the moment you understand your clients better than your competitor, you are able to serve your clients well, better. So I'm sure people are now saying data is the new oil, or data is the new capital. That's why there's this race. People have realized that with the sensors, we can collect information that previously we couldn't collect. I now know the frequency of of how my clients are going to come into my hotel if it's in the case of Cityville. So that's where I was saying the piece of what I'm saying is I'm hoping we can look at IoT not from the point of the gadgets or the technology. But what are we getting from placing sensors everywhere? We'll add productivity. We'll stop using our experience to make decisions. We stop using our gut feeling to make decisions. We'll use reality. And that's why, as much as we might say technology is evil, just as soon as we go out there, we'll be on Facebook, showing people where we are. That's the reality. But Facebook likes that because you are their product. They're collecting the data and they're using that to better themselves. So that's what I'm hoping I can share with you. Yes, we have serious security and privacy challenges. That's one side of the coin. But we can upgrade ourselves if we look at the benefits and the value that is being created by IoT. There comes in another aspect. Then there's that automation dilemma. I'm happy that he talked about leadership. We need to be good leaders, internet leaders. If we are going to focus on things and disregard people, to say, we go to city and say, I lay off these guys. Just need to make money. I don't think we'll be good leaders. But we need to acknowledge that they have to be competitive. And I like, there's one word that you mentioned that I like when we are trying to talk, balance. So we need to balance the fact that we need automation, but also it brings a dilemma. Say, should we go for automation and lay off people? So again, we thought long and hard about this in our chapter. And we thought we came up with, some solution. So one of the things that I was going to share, I'm told my time is run out, is we are now pushing for a concept of IoT makerspaces. So we're going to communities and we are preparing communities for automation, for layoffs, because it's inevitable whether we like it or not. It's going to happen. But can we do something? So we have moved away from industrial IoT. We are now looking at what we are calling craft inclined IoT. So we're going into communities, we're empowering ordinary guys. So we pick those youngsters and we are teaching them IoT using these small cheap gadgets like that, the Raspberry Pi, such that even if they don't get employed, they will come up with their own crafts, because that's where the world is going. Maybe because of time, I might have to explain, because again, this was pithy. I wanted to talk to you about the creed. We have a creed. Maybe I'll just leave you with the creed so that maybe you can research on it. So our creed at the makerspace is something called the Moore's Law. So the Moore's Law is a prediction that was done 50 years ago by Gordon Moore, who created Intel. So this is what he picked, and it has been accurate for the past 50 years. He said every 24 months, the size of the computer is becoming half, whereas its power is doubling. And that has made IoT possible, because now we can have a very, very small but powerful machine that we can embed virtually everywhere. But it's almost coming to an end. But it's something that is also coming up, interestingly. It's called Last Law. And it's actually predicting that the size of makerspaces or fab labs is going to sort of double every 2 months. So we said we missed out on Moore's Law, but we won't miss out on our Last Law. So it's one of the things that is driving our makerspace, and we've decided to make it our own creed, our set of beliefs that we live by. Unfortunately, at this point because of time, but these are some of the experiences. These are some of the ways that around the challenges that are associated with in Zimbabwe.
Yes. Have any questions? Okay. Can you come up?
And guys, we are limited to only 3 questions because time is not on our side.
One question each.
I just wanted to know the dominant UN in Zimbabwe. UN technology.
In Zimbabwe is trying to put together, because most of the service providers are getting the long power. A lot of people are right. I know the biggest fixed Tel1 is actually experimenting with LoRa, and that's really all. This is the LQ one that I know that people have actually deployed. Who's kind of on that. In Zimbabwe, we have a problem with statistics that relate to connectivity. Yeah.
Okay, another question? No questions? Comments?
With this IoT, because this revolution is new. You made it very clear for me. And when you explained it, on the positive, the automation, even how it connects in the home front, I really got clarity, and it made it very worthwhile. I really appreciated your presentation. It connected the professor and the American. It made it so easy. Thank you very much.
That's the last question for the night.
Thank you very much, Munashe. It's a great presentation, and other presenters who came before you. Mostly the controversy is mostly on security, and I'm also wondering about intellectual property, because if you look at actually the gadgets that you're talking about, to what extent are we really sure that even when you connect them or disconnect them with internet, are they safe? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that because most of them have a watch somehow. Someone has to update this operating system. You have to update it, and at that juncture, what information are you collecting? So, the point where you realize that, say, an operating system is similar to Word. Before you even finish a word, it's actually trying to finish a word for you. That is somehow stealing intellectual property, more especially from the language point of view. If you think about artificial intelligence at some point, we're going to have these cars that will come and saying Gaone, or it will say Gaone now because it has actually stolen the intellectual property from the language point of view. So how can we be sure as Africans, really, if we cannot produce this, can we really say we are safe? That's my question.
Okay, I'll try to answer because I think you threw quite a lot of things there. So the first thing is the issue of is this not sending things that we don't want? So my answer is we can utilize these internal gateways to actually monitor what is happening. As I was saying, we're working on some project that is going to record everything that goes out. No one should be able to delete that, and you should be able to see whether the data that your watch is sending is malicious or not. So maybe just to answer you on that one. And then the issue of intellectual property. I was going to share with you that there's an arm of ISOC called IETF, which is exploring technology from a totally different points of IP. In technology, I'm sure aware of something called copyleft licenses or open source. So we are also taking that. One of my slides was going to talk about Ujamaa, which is our African culture. So the way we are looking at that is we want to go beyond these copyright licenses and actually explore these copyleft licenses where we don't have restrictive intellectual property. We don't have restrictive constraints on what goes out there. We create communities, and hopefully in those communities, as I was saying, our deployments in Zimbabwe, most of them are like intranets. They are not directly connected to the internet because we want to focus on the technology. Because we feel we're not part of the first industrial revolution, we're not part of the second, we're not part of the fourth, of the third. But we don't want to be left out in the in the meantime before we get connected. So just to answer you, we are experimenting in Zimbabwe, and I just thought we would share with you. We're experimenting. Technology is very predictable. These security and privacy concerns there's a lot that is actually happening. So maybe just in a nutshell, because I don't think I have a lot of time, as a chapter, I want to share with you that you might want to look at this thing called IETF. We're investing a lot into it. These are the guys who are creating the internet. And they do it in an open way, in a copyleft way, as it were. So we are a lot of our members are actually part of IETF. It's an arm of ISOC. And we just resolved that way back, we couldn't be part of the development. But this time, we just have to be part and parcel of this, and we are experimenting.
Thank you very much, Campbell. Unfortunately, because of time, we have to end here. And also, if you want to get hold of Solomon Campbell, he's just our neighbor here, just associate with our chapter, then we can actually connect you for more information, and also with all the speakers who were up front here today. Also, as us as a chapter, if you need information or you want to learn anything from us, we'd be very glad to actually have you aboard. Next, we will have our closing remarks by Agang Ditlogo, who is a PR in ISOC Botswana.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Oh, my bad. She is currently in Washington, D.C.
Hi, can you hear me? Hello, Cha.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. I'm so delighted to have everybody joining us this evening. I know it's your precious time, and I really appreciate it. Can you see me on the screen?
Yes, we.
Okay, you can hear me. Yes, my name is Agang Ditlogo. I'm PR officer for the local chapter, and I just wanted to thank you for coming through, for just giving us that ear, you know. And before I close and give you all the thanks that you deserve, I'd like to talk a little bit. Just give me 3 minutes to go over why we need to have this conversation, because a lot of people are asking, why IoT? Why now? Why in Botswana? Is it a priority? Should we be talking about it? And one thing that you need to know is that IoT, together with community network, manners, is a conversation that we'll be having because it's a priority of ISOC Global. And please, if you are sitting in the crowd and you feel this is a bit intimidating for you, I'll ask you that no, you are in the perfect place, because ISOC is looking for communication specialists. We are looking for people who can advocate, people who are good with communities, and you have a special place in ISOC once you settle in. And the question that we often get is, how does one become a member or part of the ISOC family locally and globally? And it's very easy. You can go to internetsociety.org, and then you can register. You can register and be prepared to become part of the global community. And the question is, of course, what is in it for me as a member? What do I get from being part of ISOC? Yes, it's easy. Once you become a member, you become part of the conversation. You can get regular updates of what the chapter is getting up to. You can get funding for your projects. You can get travel fellowships. You get information about what is happening, what is trending. You get to associate with other members by joining different lists. You get information, opportunities. I can go on and on and on, but there's a lot that you can contribute to ISOC, and you can actually get from ISOC in return. So I really encourage everybody, I repeat, internetsociety.org. You can do it right now on your phone. Follow us on Facebook, on our page. Be sure we are also on Twitter. So it's ISOC Botswana. And you can follow us, get updates. And 2019 is going to be a great year with you on board. So one thing that I'm not forgetting right now is just that from the conversation I got, that we need to educate Botswana about these concepts, about these trends that are coming our way that we cannot avoid. We need to ensure that the internet is filled with ethics, as a culture, as people, as Botswana. We need to always come back to the internet of empathy, the internet of ethics, the internet of trust, and just be the best that we can be. That's about it from me, and I would like to thank you so much for coming through. I'd like to thank the professor for his presentation. Thank you so much, Solomon, my brother from Zimbabwe. Thank you so much for coming through for us. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Steve and Victor. Thank you so much for always being so supportive, for always being so accessible. And just thank you for the support. And I don't know if we have any questions. Chere, Chai, and everybody is there. Ask them more questions whilst you are networking, and talk to them about opportunities that are available. And 2019 is going to be a great year with your help. Re MC, nobody ever gets to thank you. So ra leboga batsamaisa tiro and all of you there. Thank you so much.
Great.
Yay!